Me? How could it be me?
I suspected something was up when we first met. It was your hairband. It looked plastic, but it was metal. See? It's packed with electronics. It's a cybernetic remote control. But what really got my mind going was the sticky substance on the controls in the testing center. It wasn't candy, but a gum resin. The same concoction Fred used to make the netting of his trap sticky. And the only one who ever came in contact with the netting was you, Melanie. You had it on your hands when you locked Shaggy and Scooby in the wind tunnel with Mechamut. You hid when you heard us coming. And pretended to be just arriving on the scene when we freed Shaggy and Scooby. That's why Mechamut also knew to avoid Fred's magnet. You were directing him.
Melanie?
Yes, it was me, Dad. Why? Because of you. All my life, your work has come first. You've ignored and neglected me, never once seeing just how brilliant I am. And
space travel is for everyone. Sure, it takes training, but maybe it all starts with an adventurous spirit, an imaginative mind, a brave heart, and good old-fashioned...
Money! Tons of the stuff.
Sly, please.
Sorry.
And good old-fashioned curiosity. Who knows what's out there? But isn't that the very reason to go?
I won't stand for this. Give me my crown! My crown! I want my crown.
I can't believe Deacon was really Babyface Boretti.
After Babyface broke out of prison, he teamed up with Ranger Knudsen to find Baru's treasure. Knudsen wore the fishman costume as cover to search the lake for the lost town, using the stolen sonar equipment. And he used the woodsman costume to scare everyone away from Camp Little Moose.
but with the solstice approaching and us showing up, they had to step up their game.
Exactly. Boretti posed as a camper named Deacon, acting as an inside man. That's why Deacon kept trying to get us to leave. He wasn't afraid of the woodsman. He needed us gone so they could blow the dam. But when we found that RV, they realized we were getting close. So Knudsen brought the Spectre to life to try and scare us off for good.
Like, step on it! Like, I've got one question. How did Knudsen make the Spectre fly?
Zipline.
We would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids.
Hand.
I can't believe it.
It's him, all right. The first thing we noticed was that his hands weren't calloused like a farm worker's, but soft and smooth like a safecracker's.
Sheriff, those roadblocks you set up did stop him from driving out of town after he robbed the bank. You forced him to bury the cash in an open field. He figured he'd come back and get it once the heat was off.
What he didn't realize was that field was just planted with corn. When he came back, he couldn't see where he buried the money.
Imagine his panic when he searched the field and had no idea where to dig. He needed time to figure it out.
That's when he realized he could use the Halloween harvest to his advantage.
That's why he dressed up like Cornfield Clem, so he could frighten folks away and work in secret.
He added arm extensions to make his scarecrow even scarier. Solve this mystery. Fred had it figured out right away.
I did? I did. Could you explain how I did?
You said it when the mystery machine exploded. This time it's personal. And it was. A personal attack on the Scooby Gang.
Cuthbert Crawley?
Why would your family lawyer want to destroy us?
He's not my family lawyer. I'd never seen him before. He's really Cuthbert Crawls, the partner of Cosgood Creeps.
They were those creepy attorneys that haunted the Beauregard Sanders mansion as the Green Ghosts.
What kind of ghost would travel hundreds of miles to haunt a lawyer's office anyway? He wasn't there to scare us off. He was there to draw us in. Everyone knows we can't resist a mystery. The so-called Baron's curse was supposed to take away the things we cared about most. The first victim, the mystery machine. The next victim was Daphne, who started puffing up thanks to her shellfish allergy. She had no way of knowing that she was also slipping into its built-in inflatable suit. And next up were Scooby and Shaggy, whose suits were also rigged, but with acupuncture needles concealed carefully inside. The pressure points not only suppressed hunger, they also created a false sense of courage, giving them the confidence to chase after the monster. As for me, I was hypnotized by Mrs. Vanders into believing I could recreate my uncle's experiment, which I did. At least, enough to create a diversion for one of the conspirators, dressed as the Frankencreep to switch places with the lifeless dummy.
They sure went to a lot of trouble to scare us off. But what was the treasure they were trying to scare us off from?
This time it wasn't about money. It was about us.
But why? Who would do such a thing? We don't even know these people.
Don't be so sure.
Magnus?
Yes, the shipping magnate who masqueraded as Redbeard's ghost. And as for our mysterious gypsy...
Lila?
Yes, aspiring pop singer Lila, who was one of Mamba Wamba's zombies.
That means this is no housekeeper.
Mama Mione? Mama Mione? You were like a criminal gang leader pretending to be old Iron Face.
Jeepers, of course. I should have recognized that mask.
I guess even criminals recycle. You get it? Recycle.
Who would have thought there'd be a conspiracy of people determined to destroy us?
Are you kidding? Everyone you've ever busted wants revenge. We were turning people away in droves.
We fiended each other on the Scooby Gang Revenge social networking page. You wouldn't believe how many yikes it gets on a daily basis.
It took us months, but once we found out about Dinkley's family, we pooled our resources and bought the castle.
Then we slowly insinuated ourselves into the town with our chosen identities.
Imagine our joy when we discovered the natural gas pockets under the estate. The castle became one enormous death trap.
And we would have gotten our revenge on you meddling kids.
If it weren't for you meddling kids.
One thing I still don't get. Once you discovered the gas, why didn't you just sell the land?
Huh?
I mean, if you just sold the rights to the natural gas under the castle, you'd be rich beyond your wildest dreams.
Why?
That would have been a good thing to do.
Ancient evil, get thee hence. Only good can recompense for the misdeeds that you have done, which return from whence you come.
Searching local university records, I found our caddy here had been attending night school as a land surveyor.
He saved all his tips and had accumulated a large sum of money.
Working the golf course gave him extensive knowledge of the underground aquifer system.
You're darn right it did. I knew if I could make the school go under, I'd pick up the land for cheap and build a bunch of really expensive condos on it. I'd be rich.
But what about the crazy monster string? How did that work?
It's all him. The costume made him look bigger, and years of caddying and swinging golf clubs made him freakishly strong.
Total truth. Like being a golf jock gets you totally ripped, dude. Where do you think I got this hot bod?
And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it wasn't for meddling basketball legend and assist king and bowling aficionado Chris Paul and caddying legend Shaggy Rogers.
Yes, Jab? I found the treasure map and was gonna find the gold, too. But then my goody brother got involved.
I should have known it was you causing all this commotion, Jeb. I told you, this gold should be in a museum and used to support the upkeep of this battlefield, brother. That's why I hid the map from you in the first place.
You hid the map in the Cannonball Monument.
I did, to keep it out of my brother's hands. Then he just started blasting and digging everywhere to find the gold.
He created the undead soldiers using the hologram projector as a way to scare everyone away so he could search for the treasure.
And we used it to make giant ghosts of Scooby and Shaggy.
And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it wasn't for you meddling kids. All 10 of you.
You gotta be kidding me. Is this all a sham? Were you just pretending to love all your little pets? This is shameful. Just shameful. You lucky I didn't punch you in the kisser.
It all makes perfect sense. There was never a Professor Smythe. It was Mr. Peebles all along.
And this crystallized substance wasn't from the reptile cages after all.
Nope. It's a byproduct from the crystallizing of calcium carbonate that Mr. Peebles did to create the fake eggshell in the crate.
But what about all of the monster slime? I can still taste it. That was just nasty.
The monster slime was fake, too. It was just your ordinary slime from the fish tank filter. That's why it had that fishy smell.
Oh, good. Fish slime. And here I thought it was going to be something gross.
I guess the only unanswered question is why?
I did it all because of that crazy ape. Do you know what it's done to my life? He's been eating me out of house and home for years. So I hatched this scheme to tank my pet shop business, and McGilly Gorilla would finally be someone else's problem. Then I could focus on my real passion, short and small men's clothing. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and Wanda Sykes and McGilly Gorilla.
The security guard and the beefeater?
Well, it seems the two criminals were using the abandoned underground tunnels to get in and out of the Tower of London unseen.
Elementary, my dear Holmes. It was the hydraulic oil and the strange markings that really gave away the true identity of the Screaming Skulls. The oil was highly unique and only used by a very specific type of tunnel-making machinery.
But why?
These two were stealing the crown jewels, and they used their tunneling machine to do it. The holographic projections of the skulls and their screaming not only scared people away, but it covered up the noise from their tunneling.
Well, they may be great at tunneling, but they stink at being thieves. These are all fake.
I think they look nice.
Ginger Top's telling the truth. They are fakes. The real crown jewels were moved to an undisclosed location years ago for safekeeps. I told you those weren't the real jewels.
Don't make a bull and a cow. Would have made our sausage roll, too, if it weren't for you meddling dustbin lids.
He said, and they would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids.
Real jewels or fake, you two are still going to jail for a very long time.
The antique dealer?
What?
Why?
It's really quite simple. He's not actually an antique dealer. He's a world-renowned jewel thief. The antique store was just a cover and a way for him to access the British Museum unseen.
Glasses McGee here has it right. I've been on a stealing frenzy in this place. Then I managed to steal the prize of all prizes, the Ruby of the Nile, the greatest gem in the museum. I spirited it out of the museum, but once back in my shop, I hid it in an old cat statue. There it would stay until I could safely ship it to my buyer overseas. But when my truly dim-witted assistant sold the statue to Mr. Gervais, well, I had to get it back. That's when I invented the Bast mummy costume as a way to hide my identity and steal the statue. I used that old woman's ancient catnip to get you and the cat out of the apartment so I could steal it back.
Sorry, are you not gonna...
What?
You're not gonna say you'd have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids?
No, well, I mean, I can. If you...
I think you should.
All right. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids.
Yeah, good. And me. I think you should mention me in this particular episode. I mean, I've done a lot more than most sort of guest stars. I'll say comedy legend Ricky Gervais.
And comedy legend Ricky Gervais.
The curator?
It really was just a man in a mask. I guess there is some kind of method to your madness after all.
It all makes perfect sense. Only the curator would have the extensive knowledge of the museum's floor plan well enough to disappear. And the stone particles the Minotaur left behind proved to be the same kind of plaster the museum uses to repair the statues. Which is why the golden lasso didn't work. The plaster and rubber costume blocked the effects. Plus, only a skilled athlete would be powerful enough to hold his own against Wonder Woman.
Really?
Well, even if for a very, very short period of time.
The only thing left to know is why.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything to you weirdos.
Think again. Talk.
I did it all. I wanted the golden head of Apollo. I was going to sell it and retire a rich man. I've been planning this for years, faking it for decades so nobody would suspect me, creating the Minotaur costume to hide my true identity. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it wasn't for you meddling kids. And Wonder Woman.
Huh? That's just crazy.
You were the horrible Markson monster?
You were the ghostly specter of Professor Mads Markson?
You were eccentric billionaire recluse Hugo Hauser?
You pulled the birthday cake out of my belly button?
Mr. Teller did all of it. He played all the parts. He pre-recorded all of the phone conversations using a computer-generated voice. He rigged tracks all over the hotel ceilings to hang his ghost and monster and operated them via remote control. With the hotel rigged for demolition, the tracks were easily hidden. He created cardboard cutouts on train tracks to simulate the action of the reclusive billionaire and the monster in shadow play.
That train track gave me an ouchie.
Teller recreated the famous cabinet trick from careful research. Then faked the attack upon himself so he could put on the mantle of the monster for the final fight. Teller did it all by himself.
Really impressive, Mr. Teller. But why? Why did you do it?
Because I wanted to pull off a magic trick big enough to impress Penn.
Huh? Did you know he could talk?
You remember how Penn says he loves a good scare, how he loves getting fooled, but it's never real or very exciting? Well, I wanted to make it real and exciting for him, just this once. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids. And Penn being so hard to fool.
But why?
It's quite simple, really. While cleaning the submarine, the janitor scratched the paint, revealing the gold underneath. The legend was real, and the gold was still on the submarine. So she hatched a plan to steal the gold. She had easy access to the robots and used them to carry the gold pieces of the submarine into the mine to be smelted into gold bars. Then she would hide the bars in her trash can so she could smuggle them into her truck. She made plastic replicas of the ship's pieces so that no one would know what she was doing.
And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and super nerd Stephen Quincy Urkel.
Tally?
It all makes perfect sense. When we found the actor tied up in the cooler, the belt tied around his wrists had a gold bull on the buckle. The same type of belt that Bill Tally was wearing at the start of the race.
But why? Why'd you do it?
Our father, Doc Tally, left the restaurant business to my brother and cheated me out of it. He was always Dad's favorite. I wanted my revenge, and I sabotaged the Doc Tally food chain for months. I almost bankrupted him. So then I created the Spectral Speedster as my chance to finally destroy the Doc Tally food chain. And I would have gotten my revenge, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and that comedy legend Jim Gaffigan.
Pete? It's all very simple, really. The two Petes did work for the university, but were doing a little illegal fossil hunting on the side.
When they found the priceless crystallized egg, they knew they had struck it rich.
But when those accordion kids caused that avalanche that exposed our dig, we used these animatronic dinosaur suits, Pete and I here, to scare everybody away, didn't we, Pete? Exactly, Pete.
Animatronic dinosaur. So like Pete made me do all the digging while he hogged the dinosaur suit. I just knew he was gonna cheat me out of it.
I was not.
You were too.
Was not.
Too. So I got my own dinosaur suit to take the egg for myself.
And we would have gotten away with it, too.
If it weren't for you meddling kids, eh?
And the musical stylings of Weird Al Yankovic.
Greedy, greedy, greedy.
Sia's personal trainer and vegan chef.
No, I don't believe it. I trusted you. How could you?
Because I have big dreams. Huge. And I got tired of waiting for them to come true. I knew those diamonds were my way out.
So you came up with a plan to rob all the local jewelry stores and let Sia take the blame.
It was the perfect plan.
But if your plan was to escape with the diamonds, then why would you put them in Sia's snack drawer?
Because when you snooping kids showed up, I needed to raise the stakes.
So you dumped the jewels in Sia's house and went back out to steal more diamonds.
Except I bought all the diamonds. There was nothing left to steal, so you came back to my home home to deceive me again by trying to steal my diamonds.
I was so close. I was going to retire to Rome and open my own Pilates studio. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it wasn't for you meddling kids and famous singer-songwriter Sia.
Bacon.
Bacon?
Well, that explains the familiar smell on the mannequin head. The ghost was eating bacon.
It's my favorite cheat meal.
It's one thing to be a diamond thief and set me up to spend the rest of my life in jail. I could forgive you for that. But you have been eating bacon? Bacon? In my house? That is so much worse. That I can never forgive. Never.
Hey, Dobbs, the station attorney?
Hey, I know that guy. He's the guy who's been blocking my application to declare the TV station a historical landmark.
That would protect it for generations to come. Why would you try to block that?
Because A.J. Dobbs is none other than the pie boy in the opening credits of the Potso the Clown show.
You mean you're that little boy?
He was a child actor who was paid to be part of the show.
Part of TV comedy history?
And how I hated it. Can you imagine what it was like to see yourself get a pie in the face for all eternity?
Yes! Yes, I can! So lucky! Oh, I so wanted to be you.
Not lucky at all. I was the pie boy. I couldn't stand it. I wanted my revenge.
So much so that he wanted to erase it forever. After law school, he got himself hired as the station's lawyer and began exploiting the urban legend of Potso's curse to sabotage the station from the inside and destroy all the tapes of the Potso the Clown show.
Sacrilege! You were gonna what?
I was so close to finally shutting this place down and destroying every last tape of me getting that pie in the face. So close! And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling.
Oh!
Ta-da!
Time it! Ooh, that's better. All those massages so hot. Like my face was living in the tropics. And not in a good way, if you know what I mean.
Joker. Just as I figured from the evidence that Velma sent me from the computer upstairs.
Zoinks! Where's Velma anyway?
Well, don't look at me, Shaggy. These lips are sealed. Unless I'm giggling.
Found them.
You see, the mystery was really very simple. The Joker posed as the Man-Bat, and he used an elaborate system of pulleys, gears, and wires and a bit of controlled gliding to make it appear he could fly. And all this because he wanted to get Alfred's passwords to Bruce Wayne's bank account. It was basically just a heist.
Not basically, sweater girl. It was going to be one of the biggest heists of all time.
Technically, it was a kidnapping.
As I was saying, before being so rudely interrupted, I won't mention any names. Cough, cough. Batman. Cough, cough. I need a lot of money to fund all my great escapades and capers. I brought Alfred here to help me access Bruce Wayne's bank accounts. He just needed a little persuasion. And then you horrible children showed up and spoiled everything. I was so close to having all that money. And you know what? I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and your talking dog. Oh, and Batman, of course.
It all makes perfect sense. When I was going through the school records and Maximilian Fielding's family tree, I found 3 possible matches. The headmaster, Flavius, and a student from the class of 1965.
And we found traces of pancake flour on Mr. Fielding's last will and testament.
Not only that, but the missing page of the yearbook had her picture on it. She was a stiltwalker enthusiast and talented skier.
That is some serious crazy. I was so close to actually shutting this school down and getting my rightful inheritance. I wanted so badly to open my own stilt-walking ski resort. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it wasn't for you meddling kids and Whoopi Goldberg.
The Poetry Slam promoter? It's all quite simple, really.
Speak it, girl. Speak your truth.
I always do. You see, while exploring the underground library, the Poetry Slam promoter discovered the diaries of J. Jacob Ascot. He managed to steal them from the Keeper of Knowledge.
That's a no-no!
Excuse me, like crazy old dude lady, we can still see you. Again, just like last time, you are completely visible. Never mind. V, please continue.
Through the diaries, he learned about the lost subway station and, more importantly, the great treasure.
An original, handwritten poem.
He created the Gator Man monster costume as a way to steal the old brass engine key undetected and scare everyone away from the trail.
I was so close to finding that poem. I would have been rich. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and famous singer/award-winning multi-platinum alternative pop maverick Halsey. Do you think you could let me see it? Just once?
Better than that. Hang on.
Coach
Roach!
Oh, come on. I hate that nickname.
It's all quite simple, really. Coach Roachner discovered the temple that held the old sword. He wanted to sell it for millions and retire a rich man. But Mark's drama teacher found out.
Yeah, and that nosy Mr. Burl thought the sword belonged in a museum. He threatened to expose all my plans.
Exactly. That's why Coach Roachner created the costume of the fox monster to kidnap Mr. Burl and keep him tied up until the coach could find the sword for himself.
I was so close to getting that sword. So close. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and famous actor and alumnus Mark Hamill.
The Joker? That's right, kiddies. I'm here to turn your frowns upside down.
Doesn't make sense. The Joker usually goes after the other guy. You know, tall, dark, broody, pointy ears.
Wait, hold the phone.
The Trickster? Oh, okay. Now that makes sense.
It's all quite simple, really. From what we learned in the abandoned toy factory, it seems that the Trickster has been watching the Flash, helping us solve our mysteries.
When the Trickster saw that we were friends, he decided to use us against the Flash. He wanted to create a moment where the Flash would have no choice but to expose his secret identity to the world.
It would have been a crowning victory for me. I would have exposed the Flash's real identity to the world. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and famous Justice Leaguer and superhero speedster, the Flash.
Gardner? Jimmy the Hoo-Ha? It all makes perfect sense, really. The gardener had initially followed Mr. Decay's instructions to take care of the property. But one day, he discovered the hidden passageways and the old office full of important legal documents.
He knew from Mr. Decay that there was some mystery over who actually owned the estate, and then found the letters that the county was threatening to auction off the property. So he decided to forge the legal documents showing that he was the inheritor of the house from its original owner, Cecil D. Darrington.
When he discovered that the actual daughter of Darrington was still living in the house, he adopted the ruse of the haunted armor in the hopes to scare her off, claim the house, and make millions.
Like he used secret passages to get in and out of suits of armor unseen to make them seem alive.
And he rigged lighting as lightning that messed with our photos of the ghost night.
And the blonde hair that Thelma found on the armor wasn't hair. It was gardening twine he used to puppet the armor.
And I was so close, so close. I had the perfect documents. Nobody had seen Darla Darrington for 30 years. I could have sold the property and made off with millions before anyone was the wiser. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and famous actor George Takei.
What? You've got to be kidding me. Why? It makes no sense.
Actually, it all makes perfect sense. The first clue was the olive oil footprints Daphne found in the abandoned warehouse. It was the same garlic olive oil used in Nana's family recipe. And I found that the warehouse was owned by the Buscemi family. And the photo of Mr. Buscemi on Nana's table had a small tear in the corner. I saw that same tear in the Nice Guys of Baltimore photo in the museum, which can only mean Nana hung her photo on the museum wall.
I love you explaining it all there, Velma, but that still didn't answer my question. Why, Nana? Why?
I did it for you, Stevie. I did it all for you. I created the fire monster because I am tired of people seeing my Stevie as a mean villain from his movies. I wanted them to see him like I see him, as a hero. And I would never have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids. So grazie.
But why? It's all quite simple, really. It all started making sense when I saw Jeff Dunham's remote control for Walter. So, I hacked into a cell phone tower and found 2 remote control signals operating. Someone was controlling Crazy Carl. I did a little research on Baz after he mentioned having worked in Japan and found him as a part of a famous Bunraku puppet troupe. He did it all. He puppeted the Crazy Carl dummy via remote, as well as puppeting it right in front of our eyes while wearing his all-black Hiroko clothing. He couldn't let that old lady and her son at the motel get their hands on either Walter or Petunia. He desperately needed the competition to continue.
And we would have paid good money for those dummies. You see, we're starting our very own doll museum.
Wow. I'd love to sign the both of you for a great new reality TV show about doll collecting. Oh, I love ventriloquism. You see, I've always wanted to be in a competition, but could never make the cut. So I created my own competition. And I knew that if I could impress the likes of Jeff Dunham and Darcy Lynn Farmer, I'd prove to the world I did have what it takes. Oh, and I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids.
That is risky.
But you're like 200 years old. I am 103. Thank you very much. What can I say? Dancers live long lives.
This doesn't make any sense. It's all quite simple, really. Madame Zabrinsky faked her own death. She has been alive and well, living in a secret penthouse apartment above the dance studio for the last 30 years. Throughout the studio, we found footprints from a ballet shoe that dates back 70 years, and exactly Madame Zabrinsky's shoe size. And in the penthouse, we found credit card receipts showing she was still getting billed for her gym membership. As for the funeral photos on the wall, Madame Zabrinsky took those herself. The fingerprints on the photos matches the prints that were on public record for her. And it was Madame Zabrinsky's amazing dance abilities that made her appear to float and move so quickly that we couldn't even see her come and go. For the curse, Madame Zabrinsky discovered she could generate a temporary nerve-freezing electric charge from stacks of old dance shoes. I calculated that just the right amount of static discharge would take the curse out of Maddie's system. And it did.
Great work as always, Velma, but that leaves one question.
Why? Why did you do it?
It was time to retire. I wanted to leave my precious dance studio to someone who cared about dance as much as I. I searched for 30 years for the perfect person. And then Maddie came along. But I had to test her resolve. She passed with flying colors. And I would have never gotten away with it if it weren't for the hard work and dedication of Maddie Ziegler. Oh, and you middling kids, too.
The food truck chef lady? Wait, but this doesn't make sense. I hired you to feed the crew, and you're the wedding witch?
It's all quite simple, really. You see, the food truck chef lady is actually something of a famous culinary archaeologist. She travels the world, breaks into old tombs and museums, steals bits of ancient food, and then reverse engineers old recipes that haven't been eaten for hundreds or thousands of years. She heard they were demolishing Wansley Hall for the interstate bypass, and knew it was her last chance to steal from the famous feast. Knowing of the legend, she created the guise of the wedding witch to scare everyone away and stall moving the house long enough to carry out her plans. She used her extreme archaeological skills of ropes and guide wires to make it appear that she was floating.
But why? I don't understand.
Having stolen and revived Chef Bayard's famous recipes, I would have been the queen of Southern cooking. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and famous comedian Jeff Foxworthy.
McDowell? Uh-huh. It all makes perfect sense. Mr. McDowell's pocket watch is actually a sophisticated drone used to remotely activate the holograms.
Indeed. Well done, Miss Tinkley. However, did you find me out?
First, there was that message from future me. I would never say use or get on your toes, but someone with a youth spent in Liverpool just might.
It's right. Bit of a scouser. Can't deny it. Spent a lot of my boyhood on the cop. You'll never walk alone, Liverpool.
Exactly. And then there was the party food. It all tasted the same to Scooby, even with his 300 million olfactory receptors.
150 million per nostril.
The giant bananas were actually made of a sweet almond paste called marzipan.
Well, I do love creating my own confections.
He used high-tech animatronic figures to add an extra layer of reality to the work.
Cheeky. You're perfectly right, Miss Dinkley. I used my knowledge of stagecraft, visual effects, and confectionery foods to set up this elaborate hoax.
Okay, but why?
I thought I could lure guests here with a time travel attraction like Dickie did with his dinosaur island park thingy. I thought that if I could convince you that time travel was real, it would be the biggest endorsement ever. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids who, like an idiot, I invited here.
Well, I was skeptical that time travel was real, but I can tell you one thing that is true. Your time travel attraction is definitely the real thing. It's amazing. The most fun I've had in years.
Oh, you've got our endorsement. I'm sure that your time travel attraction will be a huge success, and you'll have more visitors than you could ever imagine.
Thanks, Mystery Team. Yes, what he said. What I said. Well, let's party. I have plenty of leftover marzipan.
Like, we had no idea what marzipan actually was.
Yeah, but we ate it.
Xander? Xander? The president of our fan club?
Xander? But why?
You see, before they were the Hex Girls, Xander used to be in a band with Thorn, Luna, and Dusk. But her fear of performing in front of crowds made her break out in hives, and she was forced to quit the band. As the Hex Girls rose to fame, Xander became increasingly jealous. She vowed to break up the Hex Girls and destroy the band forever. She gave them the guitar, which wasn't really cursed. It actually held a small sound wave emitter that played frequencies that affect brainwaves. This made Thorn, Luna, and their roadie go crazy. It was only when I found the right frequency that I could reverse the effects.
Well, that's the most rock and roll thing I've ever heard.
Huh, wicked.
And I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and the Hex Girls.
And I would have gotten away with it if it's the last thing I did. I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids, meddling kids, meddling kids, you beautiful meddling kids.
That doesn't answer my question. And now I really must pry.
Why do you do it, Christian Slater? Why? Real reason? The truth is so much simpler and as beautiful as a pearl. Like any truth worth telling, this story's about a girl. Not you, Simone. Her name was Marianne Mulrooney, and she was an Irish dancer. She asked me to dance Irish at the prom. I was so afraid of looking like a fool. I had my image to protect, and I lost my head. To keep from Irish dancing, I destroy the prom instead. And I destroyed the second prom, ashamed of what I'd done. Embarrassed to face Marianne, I became the werewolf again. But I know that I was wrong, and I'd apologize somehow if only she were here, standing here right now.
Well, about that, Marianne Mulrooney is here. She's been here all along. She was a red herring that never made it into a red herring song.
What do you say, Marianne?
Apology accepted.
Thanks to you, meddling kids, you beautiful meddling kids, my life is now complete with my Irish dancing, prancing feet. Meddling kids, oh, you beautiful meddling kids, you crazy, kooky, beautiful meddling kids. Meddling kids, meddling kids, meddling kids, meddling kids, you beautiful meddling kids. Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Doo.
Jacques here and here's Jacques?
You're men of science.
Ha
How could you?
And why did you?
To smuggle out this. In their research on the tardigrade, they discovered solar-resistant genetic material that would create the ultimate sunblock.
And with serious climate change coming, they'd make a fortune.
They needed to steal it in order to control it. They faked their deaths by inventing the monster out of empty food packets.
And all we had to do was get off the space station with the test formula. No one would be the wiser. We calculated for everything.
Except Neil activating the lockdown, preventing your getaway.
Space holds almost too many possibilities to calculate. Hey, did you know there may be planets out there made of diamonds?
Did you know that 1 million Earths could fit inside the sun?
So cool.
Then Scooby accidentally released the escape pod, foiling you again. That left Bill's spacecraft as your only way home.
Sacre bleu! A key on a spaceship? Who does this?
I'm old school. Keys are cool.
In stealing the keys, Jacques-Pierre hurt his ankle, which gave us time to set the trap and thwart their return to Earth, where they would have sold the formula to the highest bidder.
And we would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and science know-it-alls, Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye.
JC Chauvet! Why would you do something like this? I was jealous, okay? Jealous of him.
But why?
Shaggy said this, Shaggy said that, Shaggy solved another mystery. Shaggy ate 15 hoagies in one sitting. That's all I heard from Rachel nonstop for the past year. All my awards, my platinum albums, nothing. Do you have any idea what it's like living in that shadow?
JC thought the easiest way to ruin the memory of Rachel's previous boyfriend would be to frame him for a crime.
He knew from Rachel we were coming back home, so he conceived the Lovers Lane disappearances.
He hired extras to play the rest of us and a Hollywood makeup artist to create the masks and costumes. Which explains the industrial strength glue we found in the woods.
He sent us secret admirer Valentines to get us out here. Then he used our signatures from the ones he sent special delivery to forge that confession letter.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You're saying
Alien really is
an extra?
Janet Lawrence?
And now for the big unveiling.
Avalanche Anderson? This last one I just took outside the museum.
We would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling turistas.
But there's still one more suspect.
Crawdad Mike!
And his driver, who helped him steer a high-speed scare.
Just stand still, Henry.
You both are under arrest.
Oh, it's time to bring the curtain down on Mr. Wacky Pants' career.
Validia Flanders.
Rufus's assistant? And my guess is the person sending those commands is sitting right at this table.
Susan Dinwiddie? Mom?
Proves that the roller coaster is really Chris.
Terry?
Just as I suspected. I wouldn't be so sure.
Penelope Bailey?
Time to reveal our fine-feathered fanatic. It's...
Nobody we know?
You're that mystical shaman.
I did it, okay? I did it! Just get me out of here!
Let's just see who's slithering under those scales.
The diving suit. This must be that shivering sergeant.
More likely it's...
Monroe Harper?
The only person who was conveniently absent whenever the Centaur attacked. Major Portsmouth. What? Who's this? We haven't even met her. We don't even know who she is.
She's my assistant, Susie Smythe.
Time to unmask the monster.
Melbourne O'Reilly? Grace Cosel Alpha Mir? Bob Taylor?
Now let's see who's really behind the attack of the 30-foot Shaggy.
Professor Pomfret?
Pay attention to me! Pay attention to me! Pay attention to me! Pay attention to me!
Help!
Come on out, Gibby.
Gibby?
Yeah, that's the creep who had me locked up, too. Be careful, Daphne.
Don't worry, it's hypoallergenic.
Steve or Tess?
Always time for a makeover, especially when it's also an unmasking.
Who's that? San Fran weirdo.
Rudy
Those dog nappers answer to their boss, the cat creature, or should I say...
This is Meadow, leave a message.
Meadow?
And the headless snowman is really... Huh?
Nobody? Wait.
Professor Higginson?
Professor, the time has come for your lecture. If my hunch is right, it's... Just as I suspected. Sheriff Lawman didn't spark. He's very human.
That's true. I created Dr. Flegg and every Manimatron in town.
And you didn't do it just so people could have a vacation weekend.
I reckon not, little
Got
missy.
me. Okay, let's try this again.
Verona Dempsey?
But why? Let's just see who this so-called demon farmer really is. The same kind of water propulsion as our scuba bikes. That's why it made the same noise.
But why would Harry confess to a crime he didn't commit?
Because Harry wanted to be a great toy maker, but his own toys weren't very good. He figured that if everyone believed he invented the devices, he would be known as the greatest toy maker of all time.
I can't believe a great military mind like mine was outsmarted by 4 kids! And a mangy mutt.
Treasures.
Ugo, the night guard?
Nobody is perfect.
The real monster isn't going anywhere.
That's Ramayo?
Actually, Spencer Johnson.
Toinks! I solved this mystery!
Bravo, Velma, bravo! You figured it out.
There never were any Awesomeons. This is all a game you created for me. I never even left your virtual mystery studio, did I?
No, you didn't. But I have to know, how did you figure it out?
Well, you really created a great mystery. But you don't know my friends as well as I do. First of all, Fred always wants to split up. And Daphne, she would never wear shoes that don't match. Shaggy and Scooby wouldn't volunteer to be live bait. And most importantly...
Like toinks!
Shaggy doesn't say toinks, he says zoinks.
Well, it looks like I still have some work to do.
Well, thanks, Professor. This was great. I can't wait to tell my friends. Hey, what about those zombie kids? What did they have to do with the mystery?
Zombie kids? I didn't program any zombie kids.
Really?
Time to undragon this dragon.
Woo!
The acrobats.
And I'll bet they're not in there alone.
Mei Ling, are you okay?
They stuck me here so I'd stop saving you.
Wu thought Shaggy could ID him, so he used the dragon to scare him away.
Watch out!
Let's see who wanted to break out of Fort Knox.
Drill Sergeant Pat to see who's really behind all this.
JC Chauze! He hired extras to play the rest of us and a Hollywood makeup artist to create the masks and costumes. Which explains the industrial strength glue we found in the fabric. Not what person, what people.
Kurt and Connie Cross.
Stand back.
Galena?
As I suspected.
Yeah, like me too. But, just to compare notes, how'd you know?
Stuck it by Rube watching his old movies, I realized Avalanche must have connections in Hollywood, specifically special effects world.
And he controlled it with this virtual reality helmet and these gloves. That's why it moved and acted like a real living creature.
And all that cell phone interference? It was caused by a powerful remote control amplifier.
That's why Avalanche broadcast from the top of the ski jump, because the signal was strongest there.
But we saw him wounded by the creature, didn't we?
No, we saw him lying in the snow. He told us he was attacked. Avalanche was about to make a miraculous recovery.
But Avalanche, why?
I used to be the best in the world. I wanted that back. And the only thing standing in my way was you. If it weren't for you interloping adolescents.
That's meddling kids.
And that gluttonous mutt, I'd be famous again.
Oh, you'll be famous all right. With both the authorities and the National Snowboarding Commission.
Demonstrating there is no creature living in the mine tunnels other than bats.
Like nobody said detective work was easy.
There are speakers throughout the museum. And as you can see, also in the mine exhibit. This particular one is called a subwoofer. It can make a sound that sounds like... This might also be familiar. I believe that these things were used to frighten away people who were getting too close. You may ask, too close to what? Again, our friend Shaggy has come up with an answer.
You can thank me later, and also tell me why. Right, fool's gold.
No. What Shaggy threw away was real gold. Somebody has discovered an active vein in the museum gold mine and figured out a system to get it safely out. If there's a beta, there must be an alpha, the first letter of the Greek alphabet. Made over to look like a dinosaur, someone's been using this thing to mine the gold and get it out a secret entrance. But who?
A crime supercharged with suspense, danger, raw human emotion. But I didn't do it.
Of course not. Our little college student is a very talented art major, very capable of designing a dinosaur to fit over an excavator.
So, she's an art major and a gold miner.
Well, now that is settled.
Not so fast, Senor Cepeda. There's a bit more. I used the museum lab to carbon date this bone Scooby had, and the other Gigantosaurus bones too. They all come from different ages, some thousands of years apart. In other words, from different dinosaurs. Senor Cepeda knew the bones weren't authentic. He just planted them at those ruins to create the legend of the curse and scare people away. Because that is where the gold is stored until it can be sold. Dan became interested in the bones. Cepeda had hoped the curse would scare away O'Reilly.
Never.
When it didn't, the dinosaur had to become real, with Cepeda and Heather controlling it.
Professor Lawrence, but why?
Because her project wasn't ready. Instead of facing the humiliation of admitting her mistake, she decided to keep the space shuttle from launching by coming up with this alien egg scam.
That's why she didn't want us looking at her data.
And that's why she wouldn't chase Daphne across the gangplank at the top of the tower. Because Janet is afraid of heights.
And the makeup I found in the lab did belong to Janet, but it wasn't makeup at all. It was an allergy powder that caused that strange rash on Captain Treesdale.
And only someone with a degree in biochemistry could come up with a freaky compound like that.
Great work, kids. But how do you explain the shorter alien? It couldn't have been Janet.
The short version was Reggie, the chimp, wearing the alien suit. Then Janet wore the costume herself for the medium version, and then used stilts to make it appear that the alien was growing for the tall version. But thanks to Shaggy, there was one final clue which put it all together for me. When he fell in the tank and all his food expanded, it made me realize that the alien egg was nothing more than dehydrated organic material. When Janet wanted to make it look like it was hatching, all she had to do was add a little water. And
hieroglyphic symbol, pronounced RELP. It must break the trance.
You're a hypnotist.
Wow, Scoob, your Ralph saved our necks.
Scooby-Doo.
Here are 4 words you'd never expect to hear from me. What the heck happened?
Well, you guys weren't really around, so, we had to figure things out. I found this waterworks underneath the Pyramid of the Moon. Pipes and wheels and gauges.
Diverting water from an underground branch of the Nile River, creating the drought in that town.
So the pipeline we saw brought water to the other town's Alcara and success to its cafe.
And all the other businesses there. All probably owned by that Mademoiselle Chantal.
Madame Chantal.
She's my wife.
It was all a scheme just to make the two of them rich.
He created zombie slaves to threaten intruders.
Melbourne's dig was probably getting too close, so the prince put him and others under his spell to do his bidding.
Yeah, and I would have stayed that way too, if it weren't for you meddling nippers.
Popcorn himself. It only looked like he was trying to kidnap the puppies, but what he really wanted was the code numbers on their tags.
That way he could get into Mr. B's lab and steal Jonas's popcorn on a Cobb prototype.
Makes total sense. Neville's popcorn tastes like greasy cardboard.
And gets stuck in your teeth.
And really needs salt.
Spencer Johnson.
I realized he was faking that trance when he started yelling commands to his muddy minions. And this is how he got them that way.
Yes, Master.
So why would you do such awful things to those nice kids?
They were working for the greater good of mankind, building the Reefway.
Like, I've never heard of a reefway.
It would have been a ninth wonder of the world. An underwater highway for cars, buses, trains, anything that rolls, connecting Australia to New Guinea.
Ingenious. Insane, but ingenious. So when you couldn't do that legally, you lured the best teenage builders here with that sandcastle contest.
You dragged us down through the wet sand and made us all look like sand-drip monsters.
Then you hypnotized them and put them to work.
That's what snapped us out of the trance. Guess we were saved by the snacks.
He faked his disappearance so he could supervise his laborers. He made them dig out rocks from the ocean floor and pile them at night on the beach.
Well, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling sand.
Nobody is perfect.
I connected his neck brace with that whiplash stop the gladiator made in his boat. And listen to this. But why was he going to all that trouble? My guess is our gladiator here works for the Scungimondo Corporation.
I am the vice president.
They couldn't build on sites where there are ancient cultural artifacts. And so he's been illegally scooping up the archaeological treasures from all over Italy.
And dumping them into Vesuvius to be absorbed by boiling lava.
They rigged that generator machinery so it would raise the buried lava up over the piles of artifacts.
Then they were free to put up all those modern buildings we've seen.
And Captain Guzman was also the emperor. They played those roles to scare away intruders.
See, and especially
We'll take all the animals.
Stealing innocent animals out of the jungle? It must be for their own gain.
That's it. They're poachers.
We don't harm any of them.
There are lots of rich people in the States who want exotic pets. Treating these beautiful beasts as pets would harm them all.
Well, thanks to you, we won't have to worry about that any longer.
Velma and I figured out why there were so many bugs when there were no animals.
Bugs are impervious to sound, and this sound controlled the animals.
Oh, get away from him, you floozy.
These two were just a little too lovey-dovey. That's because Honey operated a remote transmitter on Henry's shoulder, which activated broadcasting equipment on that boat. The flute music fed into that demon's myth and covered that buzzing sound which was geared to hypnotize animals.
So that's how they could attract animals and make them act strange and scary.
Yeah, and even shy. Snooty. And silly.
Come on, you two. Let's see how you like being stuck in the hole.
I told you those kids were meddling.
No, I told you. And I also told you we should have gone back to Niagara Falls.
The only thing we can poach there is eggs.
I think it's sad what happened to the professor's family. Since it's Christmas, can't we just forgive him?
Like anyone in Winter Hollow's going to forgive me.
Well, I forgive you.
After all I've done, you're giving me a present?
Like, isn't that what Christmas is all about?
I think we all lost sight of that.
Well, Professor, this was your family's gold.
Yeah, I reckon it's rightfully yours now.
Our first clue was when we saw the Spectre playing the stadium organ.
Bob Taylor told us that when he couldn't get hired with a baseball team, he used to give piano lessons.
But there was one clue that really put it all together. Notice when Cap throws out the runner, he throws with his right arm. The baseball Spectre is a lefty, and according to Bob's baseball card, so is he.
But why would you do this?
Because Cab Craig was my best friend. I wanted his record to stand forever.
But what about Autumn? I sure thought it was suspicious that her shoes were dry if she left the park.
Well, a girl's got to be prepared, don't you think?
Wow! only one who did that.
I hired those thugs to snatch Chrissy's pups. I didn't want them to grow up and compete with my precious Milady Moonbeam.
And look, the dog napper sack is just like Meadow's burlap handbag.
I never meant for things to go this far. If it weren't for you meddling kids, the cat creature would have just crept away.
Along with 6 stolen puppies.
How could you do this to me and Scooby Meadow? I thought you were our friend.
Sorry, Shaggy.
Military mind like mine was outsmarted by 4 kids.
That coral
And
creature.
a mangy
That's all it is. Coral.
You mean for once the monster's real?
It's no monster. Lots of strange creatures have evolved under the Great Barrier Reef. The sounds of the undersea building probably confused it and drove it out of the deep.
Well, now that tunnel's shut down forever. It won't be bothered anymore.
Thank you, coral creature.
Why is he rich while I'm just an underpaid high school teacher?
Somebody's favorite high school teacher.
You're a brilliant girl, Velma. You were my prize student, and I used your ingenious invention for my own selfish ends. I'm very sorry.
Where are you? We've got some work to do now. Scooby-Doo.
Where are you?
We need some help from you now. Come on, Scooby-Doo. I see you. Pretend you got a sliver of your melody. 'Cause I can see the way you shake and shiver. You know we got a mystery to solve that could be right on your hand. Don't hold back. Scooby-Doo, if you come through, you're gonna have to stop. What's happening to them?
Their spirits have been avenged, Shaggy, so they can finally rest in peace.
Thank you.
Kids, you should be ashamed of yourself giving us real dog catchers a bad name.
Now let's see who this ghost bear really is.
Cookie? 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 Uncle Cookie, why? WWE is your life.
WWE was his life. But sadly, your Uncle Cookie never got the glory.
And his injury put him out of the spotlight.
Permanently.
He started to truly resent WWE because he knew he could never be the champion he always dreamed of being.
That resentment grew into hatred over the years as he trained others to be what he could not.
That's when he developed his plan for revenge.
But that wouldn't be enough. He needed a pawn to steal the championship belt.
That's when he devised the idea of hacking into a video game and placing post-hypnotic suggestions into it.
That game would become part of a contest, which Cookie set up with fake emails he sent throughout WWE.
That's why he used the bear to attack your video game studio, to cover his tracks.
The contest assured that only the most skilled pawn would arrive at WWE City to aid in the theft. Cookie then used flashing lights to activate Scooby's post-hypnotic programming.
When Cookie identified the belt in Scooby's bed as the championship belt, he was lying. He'd already switched them.
With Scooby taking the blame, Cookie was free to carry out his ultimate plan.
Which was to turn out the lights and, with the help of the bear, create so much panic and injury that WrestleMania would be completely ruined and WWE would never recover.
But thanks to Fred here, we got the lights back on pretty quick. Good work.
Thanks.
And the real championship belt, where is it now?
Elementary, my dear Mr. McMahon. Cookie's wearing it.
Sorry, Cookie, but the championship belt isn't for cheaters, it's for champions.
Mr. Never was real.
No, just a more sophisticated version of the puppets in your magic act when you and Marlon were kids.
The blimp carried the griffin beneath it to make it look like it was flying. But how did he disguise the blimp?
Remember how every time the griffin appeared, it was foggy? The blimp generated its own concealing fog bank. I noticed some of the bottles in Marlon's workshop were marked glycerol, a chemical used by professional illusionists in fog machines.
I used the fog to hide the blimp, then worked the griffin through this handheld animatronic control.
But what about when the griffin attacked us in the tower? It couldn't have been the same puppet.
It wasn't. After Whirlin bought the castle, I started renovating the griffin's roost. I discovered Lord O'Flannery had rigged parts of the tower with devices of his own to make superstitious people think a monster lived there. When trespassers entered the tower, they would be driven away by the attacking griffin. I kept the secret to myself and outfitted the worn-out machinery with state-of-the-art equipment.
Okay, but who was the Banshee?
Another puppet, right?
Partially. Marlon had several rigged to appear in various places, even in the lake, to make it look like she was chasing us.
She wasn't a puppet every time.
Yes, I realized that when we saw the device in the tower. It was really a projector Marlon uses for his volumetric displays. One of many. Anyone entering the tower would have set off an invisible electric eye, activating the ghost. Marlon's technology was a lot more sophisticated than he was letting on.
Marlon, why did you do this?
Because all my life I've been jealous of you. While I did all the work, you got all the applause. I finally decided I wanted to create my own magic act. With my puppets and projections, I could become a magic sensation.
Why didn't you?
Because I needed money to start the act, and the only way I could get it is if you agreed to sell the castle, which I knew you wouldn't do unless you were forced to. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, honest. All I wanted to do was scare people away. I tried to make amends, After the automated Griffin wrecked the bridge, I flew back in the blimp to bring you down. But these two fearless souls attacked me before I could explain.
Hey, how did the Griffin crash anyway?
Here's your answer.
The magic staff?
Like, I guess it really did control the monster after all.
Aw, I'm so ashamed.
Who would have thought that miserable Marlin would be behind this?
You would. You knew all along.
Of course. Amos was the only one who was never afraid to be out at night. He must have known the Griffin was a fake. Amos probably followed Marlin to the Griffin's roost while he was rebuilding it.
I saw him going in there day and night with loads of strange-looking crates, so I got nosy and peeked.
Yes, and my guess is he told you, Mr. Curdles. That's why you weren't worried about the Griffin. You could even use it to get a cheap price on the castle.
Wow, these girlies are smart.
Oh, shut up.
No need to deny it, Mr. Curdles. Your story about turning the castle into a restaurant never made sense in the first place. You were really buying it for Miss Rumblebuns, weren't you?
Calvin, is this true? Yes, Alma. It is. I meant for it to be a surprise. You see, years ago, I operated a struggling ice cream concession here for the few tourists who visited O'Flannery Castle. It was here that I met the castle's dazzling caretaker, Miss Alma Rumblebuns. Ah, we were so much in love. Fearing that a high-born creature of Alma's caste could never settle for a mere sherbet jockey, I left, determined someday to return a frozen novelty mogul. Alas, I became so swept up in the intoxicating world of cream and cones, I never came back. But I couldn't forget you, Alma. I thought that if I bought you this castle, which you loved so much, you might love me again.
Oh, Calvin, I don't know what to say.
Well, just say you forgive me.
Do it, Whirlin. I couldn't take the money now. Not when I've seen what the school means to you. I was wrong. My place is here with you, passing on what we've discovered to kids who truly want to learn. They're the ones I've really hurt.
I think there's time to make amends. Starting with the education of our new apprentice, Madeline Dinkley.
Really? You mean it?
With your enthusiasm and our coaching, you could be the next big thing in magic.
Congratulations, Madeline. You deserve it. I must admit, you handled yourself pretty well on this adventure.
Thanks. I guess we Dinkley sisters have something in common after all.
Sherpa has been behind this monster mystery from the very beginning.
She used the helium tanks from the weather station to fill her monster costume. That's how the Yeti was able to climb so easily.
And that's also why the monster's footprints didn't sink very deeply into the snow.
I'm very sorry. I never meant to hurt anyone.
But I don't understand. Why did you do it?
All I really wanted was to listen to Del Chillman on the radio. You see, I am your #1 fan.
Really?
When I learned that you were going to be leaving the mountain, I brought the Yeti to life as a way of keeping you here.
So, like, that's why she's trying so hard to scare us all. She just wanted to convince Del to stick around.
Wow, that's so... I mean, it's real cool, Mama.
As for Professor Jeffries, he was just using the legend of the Yeti to cover up his scheme.
And I would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and that mountain-climbing mutt Scooby-Doo. Ooh, me?
So, like, is the abominable snowman just a myth after all?
No, mes amis! The abominable snowman is real.
Like, you're alive?
Amazingly, I survived my terrible fall from the high cliff. As I lay unconscious in the snow, something rescued me. The next thing I know, I found myself out on the mountain, all alone.
Conrad!
Oh, shucks.
It's the bank president, Mr. Buxton. It was Wendell McWendell. It's Larry P. Acme, owner of Acme Dog Biscuit.
How'd you know it was me?
That's because Boogity Bones is really Molly the Mall.
Quick, he went that way.
No, he didn't. He's right here.
Ow!
Mr. Dayton. You see, all along it was Jack.
Yeah.
Mr. Ryan. Mr. Gordon. Only one person could be Stinky. Vincent Thorne. Which is actually... And... No, it's Mr. Tricks and Stuff, the trainer. Actually, the alien is Barbara Simone. Mr. Purvis Parker is none other than Mr. Dilton. Actually, Mr. Jones, Chickenstein is none other than Casper Cudwaller. So I knew the monster had to be Skippy Johnson. No, Daphne. The person behind the robot is Bruce Wormsley. Actually, she's Paula P. Casso, the famous artist. Actually, Zombo is none other than Joey Jitner. According to my calculations, the boogie biker is Chinkies. It couldn't be.
It's Red Herring!
I knew it! I knew it!
Actually, the ghost is none other than Simon Simonson. Actually, the hooded heifer is none other than Herbert Blom. Actually, it's neither of them. Actually, the monster is none other than Professor Digme. Actually, the creature is none other than Lester Leonard.
Like the ghost is none other than...
Bernice Binder.
That's the fact!